Have you ever wondered what really hid behind America's favorite dysfunctional family? They made the nation laugh, week after week, with their chaos, their misery, their broken dreams. But what if I told you that behind the laughter, behind the canned applause, and behind the bright studio lights, there were secrets, the kind that no network ever wanted you to know, secrets about the cast, about the scripts that were never aired, about the strange rule that haunted the show from day one. Tonight, we're not just revisiting Married with Children, we're peeling back the laughter and uncovering the truth that made the Bundys the most dangerous family on American television. Because sometimes, what makes us laugh the hardest hides what hurts the most. When Married with Children first aired in 1987, America didn't know what hit it. This wasn't the smiling perfection of The Cosby Show. It wasn't the soft family warmth of Full House. There were no life lessons, no moral speeches, no hugs after every fight. What they got instead was Al Bundy, a man selling women's shoes for a living, worn down by life, beaten by his own dreams. A husband who hated his job, his marriage, and most days, himself. Beside him was Peggy, his wife, loud, selfish, and lazy. Her nails always done, her hair high like a crown of denial. She spent her days watching TV and her husband's money. And yet, in some strange way, you couldn't hate her. She was every unspoken frustration of a generation of women who felt trapped, pretending not to care. Then came Kelly, the beautiful blonde daughter, whose only real skill was being noticed. She was funny, charming, and so hopelessly unaware of the world around her that she became a national joke, and an icon, and Bud, the son who was too smart to fit in, too awkward to be cool, and too desperate to be loved. A boy growing up in a house where dreams came to die. 4 people, one broken home, bound together not by love, but by survival. And somehow, America couldn't stop watching. They weren't heroes. They weren't role models. They were honest. And that honesty was shocking. The Bundys didn't teach lessons. They mocked them. While other shows told you what to believe, the Bundys laughed at everything you were supposed to respect. Marriage, religion, even the idea of success. And that made people furious. TV critics called it trash. Parents wrote letters to the network demanding it be taken off the air. But every protest, every angry headline only made it more powerful. Fox was a young network then, desperate to stand out, desperate to survive. And they saw what the others didn't. They realized that America was tired of being perfect. They were tired of the picture-perfect families with neat endings and perfect morals. They wanted something real, something ugly, something that told the truth. The truth was that people were broke, marriages were falling apart, and the dream of happiness that television kept selling was starting to feel like a lie. The Bundys said what others were afraid to say. They laughed at pain, at struggle, at the absurdity of trying to be happy when life refused to cooperate. And somehow, through all the insults, the shouting, the chaos, people connected. They saw their own families in that madness. They saw their own disappointment in Al Bundy's tired eyes. And they laughed, because laughing was easier than admitting it was true. By the end of the first season, Married with Children wasn't just a sitcom. It was a revolution in disguise. It tore down the illusion of the perfect American family and replaced it with something messy, flawed, and painfully human. The Bundys weren't what people wanted to see. They were what people needed to see. And whether America liked it or not, television would never be the same again. From the moment the Bundys appeared on screen, America was divided. Half the country couldn't stop laughing. The other half wanted the show erased from television. Church groups called it an attack on family values. Politicians said it was destroying the moral fabric of America. There were even public protests outside Fox headquarters. But inside the network, executives smiled. They knew every complaint meant one thing: more viewers. Scandal was the best marketing strategy they ever had. While the world argued, the writers' room grew darker. They were told to push boundaries, to shock people, to write things that would never be allowed on another network. And they did. Every season went further than the one before. But what the audience didn't know was how close it came to breaking the cast. Katie Sagal, who played Peggy, later admitted that she sometimes hated going to work. She loved comedy, but not the cruelty and the laughter. The lines blurred between acting and becoming the character she played. The jokes about lazy wives, failed husbands, and broken marriages started to feel too real. Ed O'Neill, the face of Al Bundy, said he stopped watching the show entirely. He once confessed in an interview, "I didn't want to see what I had turned into." He wasn't talking about his character. He was talking about himself, because after years of playing the same bitter, beaten man, a part of that bitterness stayed with him. Behind the camera, the crew felt the weight of something they couldn't name. They had created a hit, but it didn't feel like one. It felt like they had opened a door that wasn't meant to be opened. By the fourth season, Married with Children was no longer just a comedy. It was a weapon, one that mocked the very dream America was built on. And Fox was loving every second of it. What few people knew was that the network had a secret formula, an invisible rule that shaped every episode. It was simple. The Bundys must always lose. No matter what the story was, no matter how close they got to happiness, everything had to fall apart in the end. It wasn't about comedy. It was about control. The audience could laugh at the Bundys, but they could never respect them. To Fox, it was the perfect equation. If the Bundys were always miserable, the viewers would always feel superior. They would tune in week after week to see a family worse off than their own. But that rule created something darker. The more the characters suffered, the more real the suffering became. Christina Applegate, who played Kelly, once said she felt boxed in by her role. No matter what she did, people only saw her as the dumb blonde. Years later, even after critical success in serious films, interviewers still called her Kelly Bundy. It haunted her career and her identity. David Faustino, who played Bud, faced his own curse. He was the youngest on set, surrounded by adults performing cynicism every day. When the show ended, he struggled to find his place, in Hollywood and in life. He fell into depression, unable to escape the shadow of the character that made him famous. The laughter on screen was real, but behind it, so was the silence that followed when the cameras stopped rolling. They had created something too powerful to control, too dark to walk away from. And in that darkness, a strange rumor began to spread. It started as a joke among crew members. Whenever something went wrong on set, a broken light, a missed cue, an accident, someone would whisper, "The Bundy curse." But the joke didn't stay funny for long. After the show ended, strange coincidences began to follow the cast and crew. A sudden illness, a career that vanished overnight, a car accident that almost took a life. Of course, no one really believed in curses, but even the writers admitted that something about the show felt haunted, as if they had built it on top of something cursed long before they arrived. One of the writers once said in an interview, "We made America laugh at misery for 11 years. Maybe misery decided to laugh back." There was a heaviness that followed everyone who worked on it. Some actors found peace, others never did. but none of them escaped completely. Even Ed O'Neill, years later in interviews for Modern Family, was often asked to compare his new character to Al Bundy. He would smile politely, but the look in his eyes gave him away. He knew that part of him never left that shoe store. It was as if Al Bundy wasn't just a character. He was a ghost, a reflection of every man who gave up on his dreams and never found his way back. A ghost that refused to die. The real secret of Married with Children wasn't in the scripts or the cast. It was in what the show represented, a cultural exorcism. For the first time, America laughed at its own failure. And that's what scared people. The show broke every rule of sitcoms, not just because it was crude, but because it told the truth. That happiness was fragile. That love didn't always last. That sometimes families stayed together not out of affection, but out of habit, fear, or exhaustion. That truth hit harder than any joke ever could. Decades later, writers still study it, not for its comedy, but for its honesty. It dared to say what everyone knew, but no one wanted to admit, that the American family was changing, and maybe it always had been broken. And through it all, the Bundys laughed, because laughter was the only thing left. Years after the final episode aired, fans still quote it. They wear Al Bundy t-shirts, rewatch old clips, and share jokes online. But few of them realize what the show truly did. It changed everything. Before the Bundys, television was about aspiration. Perfect homes, perfect people, perfect endings. After the Bundys, it became about truth. And that truth wasn't pretty. Shows like The Simpsons, Family Guy, South Park, Malcolm in the Middle, and even Breaking Bad all carry a trace of the Bundy DNA. That same mix of humor and darkness, laughter and despair. They owe their existence to a show that dared to make people uncomfortable. But behind all that success lies one final mystery. One last truth that no one ever confirmed. Why did Fox cancel the show without warning? No goodbye episode, no finale, no closure, just silence. Some say it was declining ratings. Others whispered that the network was done playing with fire. After more than a decade of controversy, Fox wanted to move on, to clean its image. But those who were there said something else. They said the show had gone too far, that it had stopped being comedy and started becoming something too real, too raw, that maybe the joke had finally turned into truth. In the end, Married with Children wasn't about the Bundys at all. It was about us, our flaws, our anger, our endless chase for a happiness that television promised, but reality never delivered. We laughed because it felt safe, because as long as we were laughing, we didn't have to think about what it really meant. But deep down, we knew. We saw pieces of ourselves in that broken family. The tired father who once had dreams. The mother who wanted more than what life gave her. The kids trying to survive in a world that didn't make sense. It was America. Unfiltered, unapologetic, and painfully real. That's the true secret of Married with Children. It wasn't a sitcom. It was a confession. One that every viewer, in some quiet part of their soul, already understood. And maybe that's why it still haunts us today. Because no matter how many years pass, the Bundys are still out there, sitting on that worn-out couch, in that tiny living room, surrounded by laughter that's just a little too loud. And somewhere inside us, we're still watching. We're still laughing. And we're still wondering what it all really meant.